A warm welcome to the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Our thoughts and prayers are with Haiti, where more than 300 people have been killed in a powerful 7.2 magnitude earthquake that hit on Saturday morning. The epicenter of the quake was about 12 kilometers from the town of Saint-Louis-du-Sud. And according to the Prime Minister, there was extensive damage in some areas. The tremor was felt as far as the capital, Port-au-Prince, and in neighboring countries. He has declared a month-long state of emergency. Before the quake, Haiti was in the middle of investigation into the assassination of the president, Moise Jovenel, and a power tussle between a prime minister, Mr. Jovenel appointed before he was killed, but who had not yet been sworn in at the time, and the de facto prime minister who eventually stepped down for the new prime minister. The last time Haiti experienced an earthquake as bad as this, if not worse, was in 2010 when 200,000 people were killed after a 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck. But on the program this week, we'll be discussing the near diplomatic row between Nigeria and Indonesia following the manhandling of a Nigerian diplomat in Jakarta on August 7th. Both sides are giving their accounts of what happened that day, and they sound pretty convincing. I'll tell you about that in a minute. My guest this week is a former Nigerian ambassador to Switzerland and former permanent mission of Nigeria to the UN, Ambassador Joseph Ayalogo. We'll be gleaning from his wealth of experience into why both sides have their account of what happened to the diplomat, Nigeria's response, and what relations between both countries should be going forward. Then later on the program, a president and his country, the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, tried to hold the nation together but fled in the face of an incoming Taliban attack. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. Let's check in on those discussions in diplomatic circles. We'll be right back.
The U.S. State Department says, given the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan, it supports and is working to secure and calls on all parties to respect and facilitate the safe and orderly departure of foreign nationals and Afghans who wish to leave the country. A statement from the department says those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan bear responsibility and accountability for the protection of human life and property and for the immediate restoration of security and civil order. It says Afghans and international citizens who wish to depart must be allowed to do so, and that roads, airports and border crossings must remain open and calm must be maintained.
Save Afghanistan! Save Afghanistan! Save Afghanistan!
Meanwhile, protesters angry at the swift Taliban advance on Kabul have accused the Biden administration of betraying them. A few hundred demonstrators gathered outside the White House, holding signs denouncing the Taliban and warning of the threat to women who would not be living under their rule. Taliban insurgents entered Kabul on Sunday and President Ashraf Ghani fled the country, saying he wanted to avoid bloodshed, bringing the Islamist militants close to taking over the country 2 decades after they were overthrown by a US-led invasion. Meanwhile, evacuations continue for foreign nationals who wish to leave the country at this critical time.
We want peace! We want peace! We don't want Taliban! We don't want
Finally, former UN Special Envoy to Afghanistan, Peter Galbraith, reflecting on the Taliban's lightning offensive across Afghanistan, has blamed widespread corruption within the government, calling the Taliban's rapid advance a colossal failure, a humiliation and a complete failure of a military political strategy of 20 years' duration.
Welcome back. Last week, there was uproar after a video emerged of a Nigerian diplomat, Abdurrahman Ibrahim's manhandling by Indonesian immigration officials in Jakarta. As we said earlier, the Indonesian and Nigerian governments have given their accounts of what happened For the Nigerian government, the diplomat, who was at the level of minister in the embassy in Jakarta, was arrested by immigration officials on August 7th in front of his official quarters. A video that has gone viral shows at least 3 men in a vehicle assaulting him, ignoring his screams of pain. While 2 of the men held his hands and pinned him down in the back seat, another freely assaulted his unprotected head as he cried out in pain. The Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement last Monday condemning the assault, which it says violates international law and the Vienna Conventions governing diplomatic and consular relations between states. The 1961 Vienna Convention is fundamental to the conduct of foreign relations and ensures that diplomats can conduct their duties without threat of influence by the host government. In this particular incident, the convention establishes protection for the diplomat and his or her family from any form of arrest or detention, the inviolability of mission premises, and immunity from civil and administrative jurisdiction with limited exceptions. Those Indonesian immigration officials were clearly in the wrong with the way they went about their duties, and the Nigerian government has, apart from its demands, which include the dismissal of the officers involved, said it would be reviewing its relations with Indonesia. According to a report in the Journal of Economic Cooperation and Development, since 2014, Nigeria has been Indonesia's largest trading partner in Africa, with a total trade volume at that time standing at $3.9 billion, with a significant Indonesian presence in the non-oil sector. Both countries established diplomatic relations in 1965. Now, regarding the incident of manhandling, Nigeria summoned its ambassador to Indonesia with the assaulted diplomat in tow. The Indonesian ambassador to Nigeria had already been summoned to give account of what happened. During a news conference last week, the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Nyama, talked tough about Nigeria's relations with this Asian partner.
What we have decided to do is to recall for consultations immediately our Nigerian ambassador in Jakarta in Indonesia, and we will have full consultations at the highest level and decide what next steps to take, including a review, of course, of our relations with Indonesia.
The Indonesian Foreign Ministry has formally apologized over the incident of the Nigerian diplomat, and it says a series of meetings have been going on with Nigerian officials since the incident, including discussions with the ambassador in Jakarta. Foreign Ministry spokesperson told journalists the Ministry of Foreign Affairs regrets the incident on August 7th. This is an isolated incident and is in no way related to the commitment of the Indonesian government in carrying out its obligations as host country or in accordance with the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. He says the incident has been probed by the Ministry of Law and Human Rights, which supervises immigration authorities, but has not disclosed details of the results. On August 10th, the head of the regional office of the Ministry of Law and Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia, Ibnu Chulden, tried to clarify the viral video of allegations of violence carried out by the officers. He said it was the Nigerian diplomat who acted arrogantly and first beat the immigration officers while on their way to the immigration office. He says the person concerned was brought to the office for being uncooperative by rebuking the officer who was checking the documents and even challenged him to be arrested. He says as a result of the beating, one of the officers suffered a swollen and bleeding wound on the left lip. He says it was after this that the officers held the diplomat to prevent any further acts of violence. Mr. Ibnu says this incident started from information received by officers regarding a group of foreign nationals who allegedly had their residence permits expired and were staying at a hotel in South Jakarta. Officers then went to the location because they also had information a party was planned at the hotel for Saturday. The hotel informed them that the national had checked out and moved to an apartment, which is where they met the diplomat in the lobby. Staying with reactions, the Association of Retired Career Diplomats of Nigeria, ARCAN, has released a statement condemning what they describe as the unprovoked and unwarranted attack on the diplomat, an abuse of the Vienna Convention, and signals support for the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the ministry on its next line of actions. Let's bring in former permanent representative, permanent mission of Nigeria to the UN, and former Nigerian ambassador to Switzerland, Ambassador Joseph Ayalogu. He is in the UK at the moment. Ambassador Ayalogu, thank you for joining me on the program today.
Thank you, Marty.
Let's begin with your thoughts on the Indonesian side, and I want to take this piece by piece. First, a clarification by the Ministry of Law and Human Rights giving their side of the story, saying that the diplomat attacked the immigration officials first. How believable is this sort of behavior about a diplomat, this time a minister at the Nigerian embassy and one who's knowledgeable enough, or who should be knowledgeable enough, in international rights and conventions?
Yes, Marty. Well, it's the whole incident is very, very unfortunate that such a thing happened, especially in a country that we have enjoyed diplomatic relations for quite some time. It's quite unusual. I would say that what the Indonesian ministry is giving us is has quite a number of faults which make it unacceptable, or rather unbelievable. First of all, let's go to the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations that guides relations between countries. Signed in 1961. Article 29 specifically states clearly that the person of a diplomatic agent is inviolable and is not subject to any form of detention and any form of arrest. Now, the bits and nuts we know about this case, not all of it has emerged. I'm sure our Minister of Foreign Affairs has indicated, has invited our ambassador, called ambassador for further discussions, and a lot of details will come out. But from what the host country had said, that they accosted the officer somewhere, not in his house, challenged him, asked him about, and he definitely told them that he's a diplomat. For some reason, the immigration officers didn't want to accept that declaration. And that declaration is very important. He declared it, and then they must have pushed on further. One thing led to another, and something that unusual happened. That is to find the diplomatic officer in a vehicle of a security agent, of a state agent. To me, that's already a kind of arrest, because the law clearly states that there is no form of detention or arrest. And once that diplomatic officer has entered into that vehicle, definitely under duress, because if he was let to go on his business, there wouldn't have been any need to go there, enter that vehicle, and or the immigration officials or whoever was the arresting team would have. There were also options they could have. They could have decided to phone the embassy right away, or just let the matter be, because that declaration is important. I don't think that that when they accost Nigerians there, that the Nigerians declared they are diplomat, but he did, and they refused to accept it. That was what led to the chain of events. And of course, I emphasize that once he had been coerced or threatened or bullied to enter that vehicle, it's already a detention and arrest, and that's in violation of the Vienna Convention. Of course, we know what we can only imagine what happened there. Nobody is telling us the fact, except for what we see trending. What we see trending is horrific. It's not supposed to happen to anybody, not to mention a Nigerian diplomat, a senior diplomatic officer, for that matter. So that's where the case is.
In any case, if it was ever true that this officer, this diplomatic officer, was being unruly, their reaction to it, in your mind, was it justifiable, even if the diplomat was being unruly and was being difficult with the immigration officials?
That the law does not allow that opening as a way to act. The law is clear: no form of detention, no form of arrest. In fact, the law goes on to say that the receiving state is supposed to treat the diplomatic officer with dignity and respect. That definitely is not there, wasn't there. So we do not understand what they mean by that he was unruly. They are the people who are obliged by the law to not be unruly, but definitely they must have been unruly. I am not, we're not around there, so I can't say whether he was unruly or not. But from my record of my experiences in diplomatic service, which spans over 30, 34 years, diplomats are handled with extra care, extra dignity, extra respect. And that was in those days when it was difficult to even find out what the situation is.
The Indonesian Foreign Ministry's apology, you think this is enough? Because you mentioned something about it earlier.
Yeah, well, apologies is not enough, and I don't even consider that an apology. And an apology that was not watered down with some spurious excuses would have been probably an acceptable beginning of a fairly long process of assuaging this type of violation of diplomatic practice, of of rights of the diplomat. But somehow I think that the apology in itself is faulty because it has made reference to what that cannot even be cross-checked, and secondly, that is irrelevant to the core issue of respecting and inviolability of the person of a diplomat. So it's there. They've submitted what it is, whether it's an acceptable apology. I doubt whether it will suffice.
Yeah, and so our own minister, Jeffrey Onyema, in one of the toughest stance I think I've ever seen him take on a diplomatic issue, says that apart from apologizing, Nigeria will be reviewing her relations with Indonesia. What does this entail? I know this is diplomatic speak for something, but just for the sake of our viewers, what would change?
Well, a lot of things could change if it's not managed carefully. The basic situation is that we have had very good, reasonably good relations with Indonesia for quite some time. And that has been translated into political, diplomatic support, interactions, and goes beyond that. There's been a lot of trade and economic activities between Nigeria and Indonesia. Indonesians are in Nigeria. There is the Indomie, it's not Indomie, there's one factory, there is the just mining that they do there. There is petrochemical in Port Harcourt. So there are various facets of a diplomatic interaction that form part of our diplomatic engagement. Normally, if you think that you are friendly with a country and they go on and treat your principal, well, they were senior representatives in this very horrific manner, one is bound to review whether you still can presume that you enjoy the healthy relationship with that country. So I think that's what the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs is talking about. So it's actually not an empty threat.
Ambassador, Nigeria has asked its ambassador to Indonesia to return to explain what happened, and you rightly pointed that out. Now, ideally, this would be referred to a recall, right? But it is not really a recall, as that would mean that diplomatic tensions have risen between the two countries, right?
Well, the language recall is generally used, but applies to various situations. You can recall for consultation, which is what this recall is. You can recall the ambassador at the end of his tour, which is also a recall. So this is recall for consultation. It does not indicate that diplomatic relations are broken, but it could also mean that the matter at hand is taken seriously by the sending country. Yeah, that's what normally happens when an ambassador is called for consultation.
All right, Ambassador Ayalogo, thank you so much for speaking with me on Diplomatic Channel. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
The Afghan government is trying hard as it can to keep the country from being run over by the Taliban, but it's already too late. The militants who've taken control of Kabul are in the presidential palace, just as the American government evacuated embassy staff and other support staff of Afghan descent out of the country in the nick of time. President Ashraf Ghani reportedly fled the country as well, but not without saying his goodbyes.
The Afghan President Ashraf Ghani on Sunday held a call with national security forces hours before it was reported he'd left the country. Local news reported that the president had left the country, and the Interior Ministry said he was headed for Tajikistan. A video released by the presidential palace showed the president instructing security officials to maintain safety and establish direct phone lines with communities. Taliban insurgents entered the Afghan capital on Sunday as the United States evacuated diplomats from its embassy by helicopter, and a government minister said power will be handed over to an interim administration. A government delegation including senior official Abdullah was scheduled to travel to Qatar on Sunday to meet with representatives of the Taliban. Taliban insurgents took control of the key eastern city of Jalalabad without a fight on Sunday, leaving the territory controlled by the crumbling government to little more than the capital, Kabul. Kabul residents hope for peace and stability as everyone is tired of war, explosions and suicide attacks. The collapse of the Afghan government defense has stunned diplomats. Just last week, a U.S. intelligence estimate said Kabul could hold out for at least 3 months. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has defended President Biden's withdrawal from the country.
We inherited a deadline negotiated by the previous administration. That deadline was May 1st. And the idea that we could have maintained the status quo beyond May 1st if the president had decided to stay, I think is a fiction. Here's what is likely to have happened had the president decided to do that. During the time from when the agreement was reached to May 1st, the Taliban had stopped attacking our forces, stopped attacking NATO forces. It had not sought to take over the entire country, by going at these major provincial capitals. Come May 2nd, if the president had decided to stay, all gloves would have been off. We would have been back at war with the Taliban, attacking our forces. The offensive you've seen throughout the country almost certainly would have proceeded. We would have had about 2,500 forces in country with air power. That would not have been sufficient to deal with the situation. And I would be on your show right now explaining why we were sending tens of thousands of forces back into Afghanistan to restart a war that we need to end.
Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai, who survived being shot in the head by the Taliban in 2012, has pleaded with world leaders and regional powers to work for a ceasefire and provide humanitarian aid in Afghanistan. The Afghan defense minister had tried to reassure residents on Sunday that Kabul is secure, despite news of a possible Taliban takeover. He said defense forces are committed to their promise of defending Kabul and will remain so until a peace process agreement has been reached in Doha.
And that's the program this week. Don't forget you can catch up with our other episodes online at channelstv.com. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.